Brant, and thank you for having us today. Good morning, everyone. We're the last talk before lunch, so we'll try and keep to the schedule if we can. I'm joined today with Nick, who Nick and I have worked together for a number of years. Nick is with the City of Toronto as Cybersecurity Counsel. I work as external breach coach, and together we have managed many of the public and private sector issues that we're going to talk about today. So we'll cover three main topics: the current ransomware ecosystem, cyber preparedness, and post-incident response considerations. And we'll leave you with some key takeaways. Just one quick housekeeping note. Please feel free to put your questions into the Q&A at any time, and we'll try and address them throughout the presentation. And if we can't address them throughout the presentation, we'll try and save a few minutes at the end. So lots to cover today. So we're going to jump right in with the current ransomware ecosystem, where Nick is going to kick things off with a brief explanation of some of the public sector obligations that public sector faces.
Thanks very much, Jennifer. And I don't see the slides. Does anyone else see them?
Okay, no.
No, they aren't up.
I'll pop them up in just a second. Give me just a second.
No, my apologies. I jumped straight in and I forgot to share my screen. Thank you very much for reminding me. How about now?
Looks great. Thanks very much, Jennifer. So this seems like a bit of a silly question to ask at the outset, but one of the things that I think is important to kind of drive home is why do we care about ransomware attacks? And in the private sector, it's pretty obvious. I mean, they're extremely disruptive to your operations. They erode customer trust. They cause significant brand and reputational damage, and they're expensive, both in terms of your recovery costs and to your bottom line. In the public sector, of course, we've got an additional layer of things that we need to worry about in the legislative and regulatory framework, and those obligations stem primarily from FIPA if you're a provincial organization and MFIPA if you're a municipality. You'll note the theme that's highlighted within that legislation. I'm not going to go through it word for word, but the theme is that the heads of institutions are required to implement reasonable measures with respect to records and reasonable measures to prevent unauthorized access to those records. So we don't have a lot of guidance from the courts for exactly what reasonableness means in this case, but given the pervasiveness of ransomware attacks these days, I think it would be very difficult to defend not having measures in place in your public sector organization that are specifically documented to deal with a ransomware attack, distributed to staff, and associated training provided for those personnel. So what those measures are going to look like are going to vary quite a lot depending on the size and the maturity of your organization. But the regulatory bodies, and that's specifically the IPC, are going to be looking for that type of control within your organization. So we lawyers are also keeping a close eye on a couple of other pieces of legislation that are in Ontario and in Canada federally these days. So there's Bill 94, and this one's a bit of a mouthful. It's the Strengthening Cybersecurity and Building Trust in the Public Sector Act, which became law in Ontario at the end of last year. So that piece of legislation hasn't changed the landscape a whole lot from a cybersecurity perspective yet, but it does grant the province the authority to make regulations about cybersecurity that can impact public sector organizations. C-26 is the federal counterpart, which is now, or in some ways, sort of analogous to Bill 194. And that one's now held up due to some technical issues and, of course, everybody's favorite proroguing of the federal government. So that one's stuck in a bit of a quagmire right now. But the eventual result of that legislation, or one eventual result of that legislation, will likely be the Critical Cyber Systems Protection Act. And this act is going to grant the federal government broader powers to regulate cybersecurity measures across a number of key industries. And it's the industries you'd expect. It's the telecoms, the federal pipelines, power supply, federal transportation services, financial sector, that type of thing. So today, we don't really know what these regulations are going to look like, but someone in your organization should have your finger on the pulse and keeping an eye on regulations that come out as a result of this legislation once the regulators get moving underneath these new powers.